The night felt different, thick with anticipation, electric with the weight of history. Every major network broadcast the same live event, the unveiling of what the world was calling the deal of the century. Outside the White House, crowds surged against the barricades, waving flags, holding candles, and chanting for peace. Reporters murmured into microphones, their words barely keeping pace with the moment. Inside, under a grand dome illuminated by golden lights, Donald J. Trump stood before a long marble table. Behind him hung banners of Israel, Palestine, the United States, and a newly designed emblem, a globe encircled by a dove made of gold. Across its wings was inscribed, the Covenant of Peace. The symbolism was powerful, deliberate, and eerily prophetic. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump began, his voice steady but commanding, today, we make history. Today, we put an end to centuries of war, hatred, and division. This agreement, signed by the greatest nations of the earth, will not only bring peace to the Middle East, but it will bring peace to the world. Thunderous applause filled the hall. Cameras flashed. Some wept openly. Others looked to the ceiling, whispering prayers of gratitude. For the first time in decades, Israel and Palestine stood side by side, their leaders shaking hands. Across the world, church bells rang, mosques echoed with calls for unity, and social media erupted in celebration. The world had been waiting for a moment like this, and it had finally arrived. But while the world celebrated, one man trembled. In a quiet room in Jerusalem, far from the noise of politics and applause, drive. Elias Mercer sat surrounded by ancient scrolls and open Bibles. His study was dimly lit, candles flickering against the stone walls. On his desk lay a worn copy of the Book of Daniel, its pages fragile from years of study. The television in the corner played the ceremony live, and as Trump spoke, Elias' eyes fixed on a single verse highlighted in red. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. The words felt alive, almost glowing off the page. Elias's hand trembled as he traced them. No, he whispered, it can't be. But deep down, he knew, this wasn't just another political agreement. Something ancient was unfolding. He turned the volume up. Trump's voice echoed through the room. This peace plan will unite Israel, Palestine, and all neighboring nations under one shared vision, a future of peace, safety, and prosperity. Elias froze. Peace and safety. His heart pounded. That exact phrase appeared in Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, a chilling warning. When they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Lightning flashed outside his window. Elias stood, pacing. He grabbed a notebook filled with scribbled timelines, ancient dates, and prophetic symbols. It's happening, he muttered, almost in disbelief. The covenant, the final sign. Meanwhile, in the deserts of Ethiopia, far from the noise of the modern world, an old monk named Abba Yonas felt the earth tremble beneath his knees. Deep within his monastery's archives lay a scroll sealed in wax, a relic so ancient it was said to predate the Roman Empire. That night, as the news of Trump's peace covenant reached even the remotest corners of the world, Yonas broke the seal. The parchment unfurled on its own, as if moved by unseen hands. The writing shimmered in gold and black ink. In the final days, a covenant of iron and clay shall bind nations under the illusion of peace. But when they rejoice, the foundations of heaven shall shake. The monk's breath caught. He knew the prophecy well. It was forbidden knowledge, hidden after the early councils of the church. And now, as he looked toward the east, he saw a faint glow on the horizon. Not the dawn, something else. Something burning. Back in Washington, the ceremony reached its climax. The leaders signed the golden-bound document, their pens gliding across history. As the final signature dried, Trump raised his hand to the sky. Today, he declared, we begin a new era, the era of everlasting peace. Fireworks erupted over Jerusalem and Washington at the same time, perfectly synchronized. The crowd roared, but in the heavens above, a storm gathered. Elias fell to his knees, whispering, it has begun. And somewhere deep beneath the ancient ruins of Babylon, a low rumble echoed, the sound of old gates stirring after thousands of years. The world had no idea what it had just awakened. The first months after the signing were unlike anything the modern world had ever seen. Newspapers hailed the event as the birth of a new age. Every continent echoed the same narrative. The wars were over, the markets were stable, and for the first time in centuries, humanity seemed united under a single global vision. The covenant of peace had not only reshaped politics, it had reshaped faith, identity, and hope itself. Jerusalem became the shining heart of the planet. The city, once divided by stone walls and ancient grudges, was now the official capital of peace. Pilgrims from every nation flooded its streets. New temples and shrines rose beside old ruins, all dedicated to unity and coexistence. A new digital currency, the mark of peace, was introduced to symbolize economic equality: one coin, one world, one system. People wore pins with the Covenant's dove emblem, while schools began teaching the Global Creed, a pledge to honor the new order. Dr. Elias Mercer arrived in Jerusalem weeks after the covenant took effect. His old friends called him paranoid, others mocked him as a doomsday preacher. Yet he couldn't ignore the pattern. Every prophecy, every warning, every symbol was aligning perfectly. He walked through the crowded streets, gazing at murals of Trump shaking hands with leaders from every faith. Even churches and synagogues displayed banners with the words, "One faith, one peace." Still, Elias felt the air had changed. The peace everyone celebrated carried a strange heaviness, too perfect, too rehearsed, as if painted over something dark. Then came the first signs. It began with the red moon, a blood-colored orb that hung over Jerusalem for 7 consecutive nights. Scientists called it a natural phenomenon, but priests and rabbis whispered that it was a sign. Then the Sea of Galilee turned an eerie shade of crimson. Livestock across the Jordan Valley fell sick, and over the Temple Mount, flocks of birds began circling at dusk, forming shapes that resembled eyes. The world ignored it, the media dismissed it, but Elias knew. He spent sleepless nights cross-referencing scriptures, ancient scrolls, and fragments of prophecy long dismissed by scholars. One name kept appearing: the messenger of peace. A figure who would rise not through war, but through peace, and bring with him a new mark of allegiance. The revelation came weeks later. During a grand global ceremony, attended by every major leader, a tall man cloaked in white stepped onto the platform. His face was calm, almost angelic, and his voice carried with unnatural grace. He spoke in every language without translation, declaring, "The covenant is complete. The time of division is over." Crowds wept. Many claimed to feel an energy radiating from him, a presence that brought overwhelming peace. Cameras around the world captured his image, and within hours, billions had seen his face. No one knew who he was. No past, no record, no name. The world simply began calling him the messenger. Elias watched from the temple's outer courtyard, gripping his Bible so tightly his knuckles turned white. Every word the man spoke matched the pattern of prophecy. "He comes in his own name," Elias whispered, "and they receive him." Tears filled his eyes as he realized humanity was bowing before the one it had been warned about for 2,000 years. Meanwhile, far away in the Ethiopian monastery, Abba Yonas awoke from a violent dream. He had seen the messenger standing over the nations, a crown of light above his head, and beneath his feet, shadows screaming in silence. The ancient scroll he had guarded for decades lay open on the floor, glowing faintly. The ink had changed. New words had appeared. "When peace is signed in gold, the stars will mourn, and the false dawn will blind the world." Before he could finish reading, thunder shook the walls. The next morning, every news network broadcast the same announcement. The messenger stood before the world, flanked by global leaders. His tone was calm, commanding, final. For the safety and harmony of all nations, he declared, "No one shall buy or sell, travel or trade, without the mark of the covenant." It is not control, it is peace. Crowds erupted in cheers. Celebrities, pastors, and politicians called it the final step toward paradise. New devices scanned wrists and foreheads, marking those who joined the new system. Resistance was seen as rebellion against peace. Elias knew what it truly meant. He fled the city, carrying with him only his Bible and a small satchel of ancient manuscripts. "This is not peace," he murmured, staring back at the glowing city. "This is the great deception." Thunder rolled across the heavens, louder than before. From Babylon's ruins, tremors rippled through the earth. In Ethiopia, Abba Yonas knelt before the burning scroll, whispering, "It has come. The covenant of the end." And as the world celebrated its unity, the first seal broke. A silent wind swept across the deserts and seas, the beginning of a storm no one would be able to stop. The false peace had finally revealed its true master.